Blessed this morning to have our very own Cindy Wigglesworth here to bring us her message. Thank you for being here this morning, Cindy. Cindy Wigglesworth is the best-selling author of SQ21, The 21 Skills of Spiritual Intelligence, a book that won the Hoffer Award for Best Spiritual Book of 2013, and it's available in our bookstore. Her SQ21 Spiritual Intelligence Self-Assessment has created a validated and diversity-appropriate way of having spiritual conversations in the workplace. John Mackey, co-CEO of Whole Foods Market, calls SQ the next frontier in leadership. Cindy founded her business, now called Deep Change, in 2000 after working at ExxonMobil for 20 years in human resources management. She teaches leadership development and focuses on the multiple intelligences required for success in our personal and professional lives. Cindy has appeared on Oprah, PBS, Fox 26 News, TEDx Lower East Side, TEDx Sonoma County, and numerous radio programs and conferences. And her blog can be found on the Huffington Post. Her website is deepchange.com, and she can be reached at cindy@deepchange.com. Please give a warm welcome to Cindy Wigglesworth.
Thank you. Hey, thanks everybody. Gosh, you guys are the brave to get out here today before you were really sure what was going on with all this crazy weather. It's always an honor to be here. It's especially an honor to speak in my home church. I've been a Unity member for 30 years, and so this is truly my church home, and I'm really delighted to be here today. So I'm going to start today with a story, and this story is about a fellow we'll call Mr. Joe Careful. Now, Mr. Careful, as his name suggests, is very careful about how he plans things, and he has booked a trip and made a real bargain find. He's booked himself on super mega discount airlines. Now, Joe got a really good deal, $100 round trip. He paid, of course, extra to carry on a bag, and he paid extra to check a bag. So he's done all of this, he's checked in online, he's printed out his boarding pass, and he goes to the airport at least 2 hours early because that's the kind of careful guy he is. So he gets in line to check in, and he gets all the way up to the counter. He puts his bag on the scales, and sure enough, it's 5 pounds below the limit, which he knew it would be because he'd waited at home because he's Mr. Careful. And he looks at the lady and he's smiling, ready for the whole process to begin, and she smiles back and says, "I'm sorry, sir, but it appears you will owe an additional $500. Will that be cash or credit card?" Now, he just stares at her like, "Surely you're kidding me." And she's waiting for a response, and she says, "Sir, that'll be $500. Will that be cash or credit?" And then he goes ballistic. He completely loses it. He says, "You have got to be kidding me. I paid for this online. I have this receipt, and I have this receipt, and I have this receipt. I paid for my bag. I paid for my take-on, carry-on bag. I paid for my ticket. What is this deal?" And she smiles at him very sympathetically and says, "You know, I understand, Mr. Careful, I can tell that you have done everything to anticipate the cost of this flight. But we have installed these new sensors, and they scan people while they're standing in line, and we have detected that you are carrying an abnormally large amount of emotional baggage. It's going to cost us a lot of jet fuel to get you to your destination, and because of that, we're going to have to charge you an additional $500. Now, the man just completely loses it and says, "That's it, I need to speak to a manager." She says, "No problem." Picks up the phone, calls the manager. The manager says she's on her way. She puts the phone down. She looks back at Mr. Joe Careful, and she says, "Sir, the manager is on her way." And he's just still ranting and raving. And she reaches over and says, "Sir, are you okay? I notice your emotional baggage charge has just gone up to $600. Now, of course, this is a fictional story, except It's not, right? We are all carrying around a lot of emotional baggage, and I include myself in that. What is my emotional baggage, and how much is it costing me? What if I could lighten my load? What if I could discard a few things that I don't need anymore? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. We're going to be talking about tidying up our houses and tidying up our souls. And of course, everything I'm saying applies to me. It may or may not apply to you. I'll leave that up to you to decide. Now, let me give you the background on how this talk came to be. I had been noticing a lot of positive reviews of this book, this lovely little book by Marie Kondo called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And the subtitle is The Japanese Art of Decluttering and Organizing by Marie Kondo. And I'm a fan of, pretty much all things Japanese, and I desperately need to tidy up. So I thought, well, maybe I could do with this book, maybe I should check it out. Now, my husband, Bill, who will be at the 11 o'clock service, is perfectly willing to testify to my developmental opportunities in this arena. There are certain domains in which I am a complete clutterbug. He likes to suggest that there is no horizontal surface in our house which is safe from my books, my paperwork, or my art supplies. Yet in other ways, I can be like obsessively organized. And just to illustrate, I have a few photographs. So Andres, if you could give us the next shot. This is our spice drawer. This is carefully alphabetized. Do not move a spice. I will be in there and reorganizing it to put it back in alphabetical order. You take a look at the next one. This is my paint drawer, where I have organized, I love to watercolor paint, and I've taken a lot of workshops, and I've collected a lot of paints over the years, and so they got to be way too many, so I bought all these clear boxes and put labels on them, which I don't know if you can see them, but like purple and pink is on the lower left, and then the reds, and then I have a box for green, I have a box for the blue-green turquoise collection, and so on. So you can see that in some ways I can be phenomenally organized. Can we see one more, please? And here is the beginning of my book collection. I am a little obsessive about books, I hate to say it. You know you're obsessive when Amazon sends you love notes. Bill gets worried if there hasn't been a book delivery from Amazon in a few days. He's like, what's the matter? Something the matter? Are you depressed? What's going on? There's no books coming. But I accumulate so many books, it's a bit of a problem. This is one portion of one bookshelf of 8 shelves I have in my office, and then I have additional shelves scattered throughout the house. You can notice, if you look, that there are little sticky labels on the sides of the books. They're labeled by topic, so they're kept together and cross-referenced in an Excel spreadsheet. Not that I'm neurotic or anything. I've had this obsession with books since I was a kid. When I was a teenager, I tried to read the whole World Book Encyclopedia. Do you guys remember when we used to have encyclopedias, actual paper encyclopedias? And that was like really cool to have a World Book Encyclopedia set. And when my parents bought one, I started reading at the letter A. I got to K before I surrendered. But I'm still an avid learner, and I love to read about science and leadership, world religions and psychology, spirituality and philosophy, and other miscellaneous things as they cross my path. So when we moved to our new home a couple of years ago, we moved to a mostly one-story home for our aging years, and I purged, I'm not kidding you, 20 boxes of books, some of which ended up at the Lending Library right here on this campus. And in that process, I thought I had done really well, but I still have 8 bookshelves in my office plus 4 other bookshelves scattered around the house, so I have too many books. So I thought, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to improve on my tendency to collect things. How could I work on that? I should buy a book. So serendipitously, the Marie Kondo book crossed my path, and I bought it, and I started reading it, and I was really surprised at how effective this thing seemed to be. I mean, it made a lot of logical sense to me as I was reading it, so I thought I might give it a try. It turned out that this series of advice was not just about your stuff, your physical stuff, but that it had emotional and spiritual significance, and that's what I'm going to kind of walk us through today. So, being tidy is about more than being organized, and you've seen that I can handle being organized, but there's another aspect, and we could show the next slide, Andreas. This is what my desk looks like. This is, unfiltered. I just took a snapshot a couple days ago. That's what my desk tends to look like, and I would like to tell you that that's abnormally bad, but it's not. If you take the next one, this is the dining room table. I did actually clean this one up a little bit. These are my art supplies scattered all over the dining room table. So I'm kind of like a split personality. I have this super well-organized stuff, but then I have clutter all over the place. So what does it mean to be tidy becomes an interesting question. And her definition, and we're done with the slides now, thank you. Her definition is that being tidy is not about being organized, which really kind of surprised me because I felt like maybe I wasn't organized enough and I needed more plastic boxes and labels, She said, being tidy, and I'm simplifying and putting this in my own language, but it's basically about only keeping the things that bring you joy. Only keeping the things that bring you joy. Well, now that's an easy rule to remember, but it turns out it's kind of hard to get your head and heart around. So the first task, she says, for all of us is to learn how to discard stuff. And she has some unusual and surprisingly simple rules for helping us get started. And I've boiled this down. Her book is very much worth the read. It's a very easy read. But for simplification, I'm kind of going to tell you how I interpret it this morning. And the first rule is get rid of most of your stuff. Yeah. She says, if we do this well, if we do this really well, we can do the whole house in 6 months to a year. Don't kill yourself trying to do this on a weekend. It's not sensible. And at the end of that year, you will never have to tidy up again because you will change your relationship to your stuff. So you get rid of most of your stuff and you keep only the stuff that brings you joy. Second piece of advice, don't clean room by room, clean category by category. So pick a category of stuff and pick a category that you're not super emotionally attached to. Well, that eliminated my books, so I clearly wasn't going to be starting with books. But, pick a category where you're kind of neutral about your stuff so that you can practice. The third rule is, as you discard stuff, don't dump stuff on other people. And I'm going to tease these apart, each of these a little bit more. So if it's not bringing you joy, why would you dump it on someone else? Fourth, express gratitude to all of your stuff, the stuff that is leaving and the stuff that is staying. And then only last do you organize. After you've done all the rest of this, then you can organize your belongings so that they are easy to find, beautifully arranged, and the organization itself brings you joy. So let me go through this step by step and some of the interesting and unexpected lessons I got from this process. The first, discard before you organize. One of her first lessons in the book is storage experts are hoarders. There is a trap that lies inside the word storage. Storage somehow gives us the illusion of dealing with our stuff. But what we're actually doing is finding ways to take all of our baggage, stuff and emotional baggage, and organize it and cram it into every closet, every nook and cranny of the attic, and every space under every bed in the house. That 500 pounds of excess baggage, physical or emotional, is now nicely boxed and labeled, but you're still carrying it around. So you can be organized, but you're organizing a lot of stuff that isn't the right stuff. It's not the stuff that brings you joy. And based on that, you're not yet tidy. Now, as we learn to organize and release, releasing is actually a very big lesson. Letting go of stuff, it turns out, brings up a whole lot of emotional baggage. And I'm going to illustrate as I go through this some of the emotional baggage I uncovered. But you first begin by discarding. You discard by category. You do not go room by room. And this was a fascinating piece of an emotional trap. If you say, well, I'll organize my closet today, you are not dealing with the fact that you might have extra clothes in other closets. You might have extra clothes in the attic. You might have clothes tucked away in 100 other places like the coat closet. So she says instead, pick a category and pick the category that's not too big and not too emotional. So I decided I would start with shoes. But she says you can do socks, you can do t-shirts, you can do whatever is not going to trigger you as your first category. Get all of that stuff in one place and spread it out on the floor. So I don't consider myself much of a clothes horse or a shoe collector, but you know, it's amazing how much stuff you have when you go find every pair of shoes that you own, every pair of boots, every pair of anything, and collect them all. Place them on the floor and look at how much you have. Now, that's a bit of a wake-up call. It's startling to see how much we have, and it can feel quite wasteful, you know, when you realize how much stuff you've accumulated. But she said, how can you possibly make good decisions if you haven't collected everything in one place? So you do that, you collect everything in one place, and then you discard. But how? And she said the how part requires that you pick up each item and wait to feel in your body, does this item bring me joy? Now, I don't normally think about shoes that way. But it is actually a fascinating thing to kind of practice with. Does this item bring me joy? It means you have to get out of your head and stop thinking about this as a rational problem and think about this as an emotional problem, which it turns out our relationship, or at least my relationship to stuff, has a lot of emotional baggage attached to it. So you touch each item and you decide, does this bring me joy, yes or no? If the answer is no, you put it in the it needs to go away pile. It can be recycled, discarded, or regifted, but it has to go away. Now, the challenge with regifting is don't dump your stuff on other people. A lot of times we will guilt trip friends and family. This is a really pretty shirt, you know, to our younger sister or younger brother. You should keep this. This is a really nice shirt. And then they feel bad if they say no, but you've just transferred stuff for them to have to take care of. So she says, don't transfer it unless you know they will receive it as a gift, if they will receive it as an item of joy. If they won't receive it that way, recycle it, donate it, discard it, whatever makes sense. But before you do any of that recycling or donating or discarding, you have to thank each item. Say thank you to every pair of shoes before they go in the bag. It's an interesting process. And only when you've done all of that can you organize and put things away and make it beautiful so that you'll like looking at it. Now, I thought, you know, starting with shoes for me would be a fairly unemotional process because I'm not Sarah Jessica Parker's character in Friends, you know, kind of obsessed with $500 pairs of shoes. For me, the big decision is which pair of black shoes will I wear today, you know? So I'm not a fashionista, but I do have too many shoes. It was ridiculous how many shoes I had. So as I started looking at all these shoes, I thought, what is going on here? And I realized that a lot of these shoes had not fit me for years. When I was younger, I wore a size 6.5. I wear an 8.5 now. In what fantasy world did I think my feet were going to reverse direction? I don't know. I had some really nice high heels, 2.5 inches high, that used to work when I was 20-something, but they don't work anymore. They don't fit, they don't feel good, and they're hopelessly out of style. But they were expensive, or I had an emotional attachment to them for some reason. I remembered some event I wore them to. But I wasn't getting real with myself, and I wasn't facing reality that I've been wearing orthotics since 2009. That's 6 years. you know, they don't fit in these shoes. Like, what's going on? So not only am I not a 6.5, but these things don't work with orthotics. I had some snow boots. It snows a lot here, doesn't it? I might need to wear them again sometime in the next 10 to 20 years. Or I might go to Colorado in the winter. But of course, they're a size too small, but there's, you know, there's always that. Or I might have to dress up. I might have to wear these high heels again for the second time. Or these shoes were expensive. If I give them away, basically unworn, it means I made a mistake buying them, and I don't like to make mistakes. So I have to keep them so that I'm sure I didn't make a mistake. Or those sandals are really cute. I know they hurt, but they're really cute. Or those shoes were a bargain. I got them on a super discount sale. And if I let them go, it means that was a mistake. Well, you get the idea. I sat there and listened to the litany of excuses going on in between my ears, and I realized that there was another set of stories right below that set of stories. And the primary story below that whole set of stories was the story that I was sad about getting older. And I hadn't wanted to face that that was actually what was going on with my shoes, but that they reminded me that I'm no longer 28 years old. Now, in my head, I'm 28 years old. I look in the mirror every morning. I don't know who's looking back, but that's not me, right? So in my mind, I'm still 28. In my mind, I still weigh 125 pounds. That's been gone a long time. In my mind, I still wear a size 6.5 shoe. So in some strange way, that old identity was tied into my shoes. Weird. I didn't want to be the self who's 58. I didn't want to be the self who wears orthotics. I want to be the self who wears pretty dresses and goes dancing. Byron Katie has a wonderful way of helping us confront our stories about reality. You know, she asks you, is that really true? Is that really true? Is it really sad to let go of these shoes? I had made up a story, unconsciously, that those shoes were tied to that old identity. Would it really be so sad to let go of that old identity? Would it really be so difficult to accept the real me? You know, there's a wonderful saying that flies around Facebook a lot, and it says, do not complain about getting old. It is a privilege denied to many. It just kind of gives me a little whoa, wake-up moment every time I see that go by. It's a privilege to have made it to 58. You know, many people in this world do not make it to 58. It is a privilege to make it to this age. It is silly for me to be grumbling about it. At another level, we have to have self-compassion. Yes, I understand there are things to be grieved about getting older, but at a larger perspective, there are things to be appreciated about getting older. So I decided I needed to liberate myself from these silly ideas, and I gave away all the still wearable shoes, and I threw out all the ones that really I couldn't burden anybody else with. And I came to recognition of, I have some nice shoes in here that actually give me the arch support I need or will fit my orthotics, and those will be the ones I keep. And that's okay. As Marie Kondo insisted, I thanked my old shoes before I donated them. I thanked them for the service they had provided me, even if it was only on one occasion, even if the service was for me to realize I need to quit buying stuff just because it's on sale. As I looked at the very small number of shoes that remained, I held each one and asked myself, does this item bring me joy? And I learned something. I learned that joy requires that I be open to it. It's not about my left brain and my logic, which are my strengths. It's about being in conscious relationship with my stuff and being in gratitude. How I feel means I have to open my heart, and I can't feel joy if I don't feel gratitude. And gratitude's a pretty cool thing. So I held my athletic shoes with so much gratitude for the way they support my feet and let my orthotics slide nicely inside of them, and how they enable me to walk and exercise and move my body, and how phenomenally great it is that I can still walk and move my body. Those shoes that I used to hate for being 2 sizes larger than I wish they were are now perfect, beautiful, and exactly what I need. And I did the same process with each and every shoe I kept. I touched it, I thanked it, I placed it on the shelf where I could see it. And when I was finished with this whole process, I took the garbage bags with the still usable shoes out to the front door for donation. I threw the old ones out in the garbage, and I walked back in my closet to do the last little bits of tidying up, and I had my next aha moment. As I walked back into the closet, I realized the emotional energy of that little room had changed. That the emotional energy of that closet was now positive. I had not realized that every morning when I walked in there, I was feeling sadness over the fact that my feet were too big and I was too old and all that garbage I was telling myself. Not even consciously. But my closet changing changed my emotional state. And I thought, wow, there's a lot more to this book than I gave this book credit for. There's like a Sunday lesson in here, maybe. That I was releasing and unburdening myself in ways I had not expected, and that tidying up really is magical. And that's the title, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Life-changing. So it wasn't just for my closet or my physical belongings. This magic was about my psychological and my spiritual space. In metaphysical spiritual principles, we say, as within, so without. And it also works in reverse, as without, so within. So you can kind of look at the interior and the exterior as one flowing, continuous, energetic movement. As I was cleaning up the outer, I was cleaning up the inner. And then as I purge my old ideas about myself, I won't be buying the wrong shoes anymore. Like the outer will manifest. So the inner and the outer will flow together. Like giving and receiving. It's like change the inside, change the outside, change the outside, change the inside. So it's flowing nicely together. I'm 58, and that is not a problem. It is a gift, and I just need to remember that every day. In the extra 30 years between my fantasy ideal body self of 28, I have lived a fabulous life, and I need to not forget that. And I hope I have another 30 years of fabulous to go, or more. Why am I wasting time stuck on an old self-concept, comparing the current me to the old me? What a waste of energy. No wonder they want to charge me $500 or $600 for my emotional baggage. That's ridiculous. So the spiritual ticket agent wake-up story is really about coming to reality, about the garbage I'm carrying that I don't want to be carrying anymore. So I got enthusiastic about this whole tidying up process, and I tend to obsess on things. So I'm trying not to go all obsessive on this and ruin it. I'm trying to go one category at a time in a self-compassionate, spacious way, working my way around my house one category at a time, pulling out everything related to that category and appreciating it all and releasing what I don't need. And I thought, this is so deeply applicable to tidying up my soul as well. So how could I kind of make a new set of rules, a parallel set of rules for tidying up my self-concepts and my soul? And the first one is to release the stuff that no longer serves me. Release the stuff. I have been uncovering a bucket load of old self-concepts that no longer serve me. So how can I thank each self-concept and release it and allow a new one to join me? How can I release relationships that are past their normal lifespan? Do you ever cling to people who kind of don't really want to hang around with you anymore? It's like, please, 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 please. Or professional relationships that have sort of passed their time. And there's nothing wrong with people moving on. You know, we tend to make that a problem. And so releasing the people, the relationships that need to be released, and releasing all of it with gratitude and love. Keeping only what serves me, both stuff and ideas, and the relationships that are productive and loving. Sharing affectionate appreciation with every person, especially. Gratitude for things is one thing, but affectionate gratitude for the people in my life is irreplaceable. I've sort of developed this deathbed test. If I were on my deathbed a week from now, what would I regret having not said today? And try to say that, you know, whatever that is. So thank the people, carefully, consciously add things. So I'm not going to quit shopping, but I suspect I'm going to buy a lot less stuff as a result of going through this process, because I'll be much more intentional to pick up an object and see, does this bring me joy? And I don't want to just keep accumulating. What can I release from my closet or from my house that I don't need anymore if I'm going to bring this home? And I think it will be a good thing. I will have a lot less stuff in my life, and I will be much more intentional and joyful about my relationships that I add to my life as well. And the fourth, of course, is don't dump your stuff on others. The ways in which we can dump our emotional baggage on other people are pretty much infinite. If this is my anger, it's mine to be released. It's not mine to dump on you. And so being very careful about how I release my stuff. So as I continue to work on tidying myself and tidying up my soul, you can ask me a year from now how it's going, and if I'm still as enthusiastic as I am. But I am trusting that my enthusiasm will continue. It seems to be quite a nice pick-me-up when I'm having a down day to pick a category and get busy and start getting rid of some stuff. And I'm also hopeful, for the sake of my husband, that I can overcome some of my clutterbug ways and uncover the dining room table in time for Thanksgiving. In any event, I know that regardless of how messy or not messy the house is for Thanksgiving, I will be deeply grateful for all the people who are there and for the food that we eat. And I am deeply grateful that all of you came out in the weather today to be with me. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Cindy.